about 8 of these people, nurses around me, and you feel intimidated because they are around you, surrounded you, and you stand there and they say, well, take off your clothes, you're going in seclusion. So I was taking off my clothes, I was prodding the back, I pushed someone's hand away, I don't know who was prodding my back, and all they broke was jumping me. A cloth was put in my mouth, and I was being kicked, punched, and put in seclusion. About 2 hours later, door opened, and there was about 3 or 4.
Why is there a hospital that invokes dread, where rumor and reality conjure up images of demonic presence? Imagine stepping into a world where the most disturbed minds are locked away. Why do they deserve the questionable treatment given? You're about to enter a place where the darkest corners of human mind are exposed, and the questions that haunt us all are brought to light. Join me on a journey into the heart of Broadmoor Hospital, where the walls run red with secrets, and the truth is more terrifying than fiction. Broadmoor Hospital, the boundaries of which have seen menacing madness for over 150 years. This foreboding institution has housed some of the most notorious criminals in history, men and women who have committed unspeakable crimes, and yet are considered too dangerous to be held in a regular prison. As history has it, Broadmoor Hospital was founded in 1863 during the reign of Queen Victoria. Its original purpose was to provide a safe and secure environment for patients deemed too dangerous for regular psychiatric care. The hospital was designed to house 500 patients, and its construction was influenced by the pantechnicon concept, where a single guard could observe all patients without being seen. The hospital's early years were marked by overcrowding and poor conditions. Patients were subjected to inhumane treatment, including physical restraint and isolation. However, in the early 20th century, Broadmoor underwent significant reforms.
Well, the POA would defend members who'd really behaved in not just an unprofessional way, but in a totally reprehensible way.
Broadmoor's architecture is a mix of Victorian-era buildings and modern additions. The hospital's high walls and secure perimeter are designed to prevent escapes. The facility is surrounded by a 20-foot-high wall, topped with barbed wire, and has a sophisticated alarm system. The hospital has a reputation for being one of the most secure facilities in the world. Its staff includes experienced prison officers, psychiatrists, and therapists. Patients are constantly monitored, and their movements are restricted. Broadmoor patients are referred by the criminal justice system, or the NHS. They receive psychiatric treatment, therapy, and occupational therapy to manage their conditions. The hospital has a range of facilities, including art therapy rooms, gyms, and gardens. The hospital's goal is to rehabilitate patients and prepare them for reintegration into society. However, the success rate is debated, and some critics argue that the hospital's focus on security over rehabilitation hinders patient progress. Before 1800, there were no special facilities for such patients, and they were incarcerated in local prisons where, John Howard wrote, the conditions were crowded and offensive because the rooms, which were designed for prisoners, are occupied by the insane. Where these are not kept separate, they disturb and terrify other prisoners. No care is taken of them, although it is probable that by medicines and proper regimen, some of them might be restored to their senses and usefulness in life. On a day in May 1800, James Hadfield, a paranoid schizophrenic, fired a pistol at King George III in Drury Lane Theatre, missing the king's head because he was responding to the audience by bowing. At his trial, he offered no defense, telling the court that he wished to be hung, drawn, and quartered as God had instructed him to save the world by sacrificing his own life. The court found him not guilty by reason of insanity and left the authorities with the problem of disposal with this novel verdict. Thus, Bethlehem, which had been a home for the insane for the previous 400 years, managed by the City of London. The supervision at Bethlehem was, however, not very strict. Indeed, Hadfield himself escaped for a short period. Within a month of this trial, Parliament hastily passed the first Criminal Lunatics Act, under which all those acquitted on the grounds of insanity, or insane when arrested, could be ordered to be detained in custody until His Majesty's pleasure be known. Thus, for the first time, criminal lunatics were recognized as a special category and could be detained if necessary for life. Although secure wards were added to Bethlehem, most criminal lunatics did not go there but to prisons or county asylums. These mentally disordered patients were unwelcome in prisons, and as dangerous patients were unwanted in mental hospitals. Another select committee of the House of Commons reported in 1860 that to mix criminal lunatics with other patients is a serious evil. It is detrimental to other patients as well as themselves. The special wings in Bethlehem were by now overcrowded, and Parliament passed the 1860 Criminal Lunatics Act to make better provision for the care and custody of criminal lunatics, and authorized the building of Broadmoor. The site chosen for Broadmoor Hospital was a plateau in the Berkshire countryside, as the country air was believed to be beneficial to madness, and the building was designed by a famous architect of the day, Sir Joshua Jebb. The labor was provided by convicts from nearby Woking prison, and the buildings completed within 3 years. The first patients to arrive when the institution opened in 1863 were those transferred from local prisons and asylums and from Bethlehem, including Daniel McNaughton, and these were all Her Majesty's pleasure. Patients found not guilty by reason of insanity or insane on arraignment. From 1877 onwards, when prisons came under government control, convicts were admitted. Unlike the pleasure patients, these equivalents of our present-day Section 72 transfers were known as time patients and were generally free to leave Broadmoor when their prison sentence expired. They could be sent back to prison during the currency of their sentence if certified sane. If still insane at the time they were due for release, they were sent to county asylums. It was possible but rare for them to be kept in Broadmoor if too dangerous to leave. For its first 50 years, Broadmoor served the whole of England and Wales. Rampton opened in 1912 for those from the north of England. But soon after, it became the state institution for mental defectives. Moss Side opened for its intended purpose in 1933, when Rampton overflowed. Broadmoor then continued as the only institution for non-defective criminal lunatics, being managed by the Home Office, who controlled all admissions and discharges. It is for that historical reason that the Nurses' Union in Broadmoor was, and still is, the Prison Officers' Association. By the same token, it is possibly understandable that many of the public believe Broadmoor to be a sort of prison hospital. The hospital has, however, nothing to do with the prison system. All patients are detained under health rather than penal legislation. There are no prison warders, guards, or inmates, only doctors, nurses, and patients. Broadmoor has faced numerous controversies over the years, including allegations of patient abuse, staff misconduct, and criticism over its treatment methods. In the 1970s, the hospital was at the center of a major scandal involving the notorious serial killer, Peter Sutcliffe. Victor Nash was a Daily Telegraph reader. Nash, 56, was found dead in his room. Around his neck, he'd placed a dressing gown cord, which in turn was attached to a radiator. His 29 years at Broadmoor High Security Hospital were over. In 1970, driven by voices telling him that he was the Son of God, Nash strangled his wife. She survived the attack. He was sent to Broadmoor, never to re-emerge. Nash's suicide was the first of 3 in 1 week during a 10-month period when there was 1 suicide every 36 days at Broadmoor. The suicides did not make the headlines. As long as no one's escaping, as long as no one's getting attacked, there's an indifference to what's going on in Broadmoor. As one visitor to the hospital put it, the Commons Health Select Committee publishes a report calling for the closure of Broadmoor, Rampton, and Ashworth. It echoes the conclusions of other reports and inquiries over the last 20 years, which have found the special hospitals unmanageable due to their size and culture, failing both patients and staff. In 1992, Sir Lewis Blum Cooper, then chairman of the Mental Health Act Commission, called for Broadmoor, Rampton and Ashworth to be dismantled.
Wayne Drinkle has been in Broadmoor since 1999. He's never killed anyone. Wayne claims that on the admission ward, a nurse tried to get him to lose his temper, as he told his legal representative.
He says that he kept his hands down by his side and that the member of staff punched him on the nose and then put him in locks onto the floor.
A little while back, the Fallon report into Ashworth, sparked by a patient's whistleblowing, exposed a dysfunctional institution veering out of the management's control. It was discovered that an unsupervised 8-year-old girl had visited a unit containing pedophiles. Drugs were rife. The recommendation, once again, was closure. According to public opinion, the government probably calculates, would stand for nothing less. As the domain of some of the most violent, dangerous people in the land, including killers, rapists, and pedophiles, the special hospitals have long served as society's Pandora's box, the repository of evils beyond our comprehension, places disconnected from society, except as the focus for morbid fear and fascination. Many are outraged that the hospitals are under the auspices of the NHS rather than the prison service. But many of those detained at the hospitals have never been charged with a crime. At least a third have been judged not to be in clinical need of high security care. Extremely vulnerable patients, whose detention is the result of mental illness, are forced to coexist alongside others whose criminality outstrips their illness. Female patients comprise 16% of the total. More than 65% of them have suffered sexual abuse, and they tend to have vastly different offending profiles to male patients, twice as many of whom have killed. We have more to show and tell, so viewers, in Part 2 we'll explore the stories of some of Broadmoor's most notorious patients, including serial killers and high-profile cases. We'll read deeper into the dark history of Broadmoor Hospital and examine the ethical debate surrounding its treatment methods. So to stay tuned as we uncover the truth behind the walls of Broadmoor.